السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن تاب وعمل صالحا فإنه يتوب إلى الله متابا. والذين لا يشهدون الزور وإذا مروا باللغو مروا كراما. والذين إذا ذكروا بآيات ربهم لم يخروا عليها صما وعميانا. والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. أولئك يجزون الغرفة بما صبروا ويلقون فيها تحية وسلاما. خالدين فيها حسنت مستقرا ومقاما. قل ما يعبأ بكم ربي لولا دعاؤكم فقد كذبتم فسوف يكون لزاما. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam. Today we're continuing the parenting series workshop. Alhamdulillah. You saw that the last 3 episodes, we had our Imam Dr. Hamid Slimi go over different elements of those parts. And if you missed it, it's on our YouTube channel. You can catch up parts 1, 2, 3. He highlighted many things, talked about obviously Luqman alayhi salam and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him and the interactions of us Muslims with our parents and so forth. Today, we're going to continue on the same theme of parenting. We have with us Brother Omar Zia. And mashallah, we are blessed to have him. We've had him here for other functions as well. He is currently a high school principal in the Peel District School Board. So that's definitely a good value add because he interacts with high school children and he interacts at the mainstream level. He is also a part-time instructor with Queen's University, which is located in Kingston. He was a guidance counselor for 10 years. And alhamdulillah, we know the value of guidance counselors. And also taught ESL, English as a secondary language, special education, science, English. Further on, Omar Zia is on the Council for Muslim Educators Network of Ontario and is the chair of the Muslim Employees Association of Peel. MashaAllah. Omar Zia has an avid interest in equity and inclusion work as it pertains to disrupting and dismantling racism, colonial practices which hinder student success. Brother Zia is a member of the clergy and supports several community-based programs for Muslim identifying youth. MashaAllah, he's also served, I know, for many years with Dawah Net as well, so you'll definitely recognize him if you're not by name, by face only. So I want Brother Omar, he's going to address us. He's going to talk about the role of parents, especially who have children that are in school. What can we do? Because sometimes we think, that's it. They go to school, then they come home. We have to be more active, and inshallah, he'll enlighten us. We're going to delay Isha Salat by just 10-15 minutes so we can finish it because in the next few weeks, we're at a time where Isha and the program starts. So inshallah, we'll pray Isha at 8:15. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brother Omar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me here with all of you tonight. It's my pleasure to be here with you. I do have my email address up here on the screen, omar.zia@plsb.com. So if you want a copy of this presentation or if you have questions, sometimes we have specific questions to our families or to our kids or the schools that they go to. If you need support, feel free to email me at any time, omar.zia@plsb.com. There's also a worksheet that goes along with the presentation, which I believe the masjid will send out at some time or make available to you. Okay, so tonight, inshallah, we're going to talk about a few things, and we have a limited amount of time, so I'll go through them quickly, but inshallah with enough depth that you can benefit, inshallah. So we're going to talk about PAIF. I'll talk about what that means in a moment. The triangle model of education in Ontario. We're going to talk a little bit about identity and character as they go hand in hand. And then we'll skip over growing success, and then work ethic, and some homework as well. Give me 1 second to just change the presentation, actually. Where am I? Okay. Okay, so parent as first educator. So this is a concept that sometimes we're not always aware of, but here's a question for us. Who taught our children the alphabet? There's people in the audience here, so I know the people online might not be able to say anything, but people who are here, just popcorn it out. Say it out loud. Who taught the kids how to read, how to do alphabet? The parents did, exactly. Who taught our kids how to tie their shoelaces? The parents did, hopefully, right? So some fathers, not just the mothers, right? Who taught our children how to read Quran? Inshallah, we did as parents, right? Who taught our children how to pray Salah? How to come to the masjid? How to treat others with kindness and care and respect? Who is Allah? Who is the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? These are the elements that parents have taken upon themselves. And so this is this concept of parent as first educator. And so part of being a parent in education is to understand that as parents, we are by nature teachers. We take time to take the knowledge that we have gathered over a period of time and share that with our children. And inshallah, perhaps one day, our grandchildren as well. Perhaps our neighbors' children. We have a lot of knowledge and experience that we have taken a whole lifetime to earn and to develop. So as teacher educators, as parent educators, we have that right and that responsibility that whether we realize it or not, we're doing all the time. Every action we do, our children are watching. Every word we speak, our children are watching. I'm not just talking about the young ones. I'm talking more particularly about teenagers. So as we plan for the future, there's a very important advice given to us by one of our Khalifas, our fourth Khalifa, the Ali ibn Abi Talib. Is anybody aware of what the advice is that he gave? So the advice he gave to us is, do not parent your children the same way that you were parented, because they are born for a different time. So here's a question. Who here was born after 1996? We're all born before then. Okay, we have some people born after 1996. What was so important about 1996? No, in 1996, what happened? In fact, actually 1995, more likely. Something very important happened in our society around the whole world. It changed the world in 1995. The birth of the internet. Right? The internet came out in 1995, 1996. Anybody here born after 2008? What happened in 2008? Sorry? The iPhone. Thank you. The iPhone was born in 2008. Completely changed the whole world. So our children have been born into a time far different than their parents. And that plays a significant role in how they've grown up and what has influenced them and how they're influenced today, but also how they learn. What do you find success for a child? How would you define success if you have a child or you think about children? What do you find success? Okay, so having ambition, right? Having ambition. Okay, so not being susceptible to social media or falling into the traps of social media. To avoid addictions, whether it be social media and all forms of other addiction that exists today. And it's not just smoking, but vaping is a big addiction that sometimes teenagers are involved in. Kids as young as age 12. My school that I teach at is actually grade 7 to grade 12. So I do have elementary students in my school, and we are concerned about kids in grade 7 and 8 vaping as well. Okay. What are the characteristics of success? What are some of the qualities and values that if a person has, you think that they will earn success or they are successful? Having goals. Being intelligent. See? So obedient to parents, or listening to parents, or talking with parents, collaborating with parents. So choosing to live inside of a good and safe environment, or taking steps to have a positive environment around them. Being kind. So having a religious or faith-based foundation. Praying the prayers on a regular basis. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. So here's a question. Who has been entrusted with this? Who has been entrusted with instilling those characteristics or helping children find the success in those factors that we mentioned? Who is responsible? Parents. Thank you. Parents are the ones responsible for this. So when we say parent as first educator, what we are referring to is the fact that parents have a responsibility for the education of their child, but no one here talked about math. When I asked this at define success or define characteristics, no one said mathematician, no one said doctor, no one said engineer, right? So when it comes to parenting our children and we think about our responsibility, it's much more than the academic success. In fact, academic success pales in comparison with the education of character, which is much more important for us, especially as Muslims. And if we do not take on that responsibility, then we are not engaging in what we call proactive parenting. Rather, we end up in a reactive parenting. And the slide you see here is often referred to as helicopter parenting. Helicopter parenting refers to when parents are not thinking about their children ahead of time, and then when things go wrong, they start to freak out. and they lose their minds, and they start getting so stressed out and worried and frustrated with their children. So this reactive approach often becomes what's called helicopter parenting, where they just swoop in at the last minute to save their child, or the child is already messed up and they swoop in to try and change what's happening to them. Here's an example. My child does not get, forgive the picture, I realize that the woman is not properly dressed. My child does not get 2 out of 10 on reading quizzes. It's your job as a teacher to teach him, fix this. So this is an example of reactive parenting. Here's an interesting picture you might see every now and again. Right? So myself, it says 1969, but I started teaching in 1998, and at that time, it was still the same situation, where if the child did not do well, the child had to explain why they did not do well. But today, it's the teacher always seems to get blamed. It's because parents are not proactively involved in their child's life. So when a child comes home with a less than satisfactory mark, maybe they come home with a 70 or 60, or maybe a failing mark, the parent gets upset, and rather than blaming themselves and taking a look at the fact that they were not there for their children, they rush to the school and they're yelling at the principal, happens to me, yell at the vice principal, yell at the teachers, yell at the guidance counselor, because they are frustrated, not so much with the education system, not so much with their children, but they're frustrated with their own lack of taking on that responsibility proactively to be there for their kids. So this is something that we really need to consider, that we do have a significant role in the education of our children. Here's another humorous example. This is a mother. She's saying, "Oh, I'm just here for the interview part. I'm certain that once he gets the job, my son will show up for it." So sometimes parents start to overcompensate. They feel so guilty of not being there for their children. They're trying to be proactive, but in fact, they start doing things for their children. And what happens is that children start to grow up with a sense of self-entitlement, because someone's going to do it for me. Sorry, he's late for work. We forgot to brush his teeth for him. Right? So even the child might grow up thinking everything has to be done for me, because parents are now starting to try and overcompensate. Our test results show nothing out of the ordinary. I'm afraid your child is just ordinary, because sometimes parents, in an effort to be proactive, think, "Oh, so my child is special. Something is different about them. They have to be handled in a very different manner." And what we find as parents is that we do have, we have to look at our children from more than one point of view. So the model of education in Ontario, and there's something called the Ontario Education Act. It's a legal document. You can find it online. You can just Google it, Ontario Education Act. And as a parent, we should all be aware of what it says in that act, because our children are being subject to an education system based on what's written in that act. To make it easier for you, I'd recommend you look at Regulation 298 and Regulation 264. These are the areas which tell you about the role of the teacher. What is the responsibility of the teacher? So as you can see now, if the teacher is responsible for X, Y, and Z, then what am I responsible for as a parent? And when you read that part of the Education Act, you're going to learn a few things. But first of all, you're going to recognize that the student is always at the center of everything we do in education. All the policies, even from the code of conduct to student success strategies, everything focuses on the student and the student being successful. But in the Education Act, you'll find there's a very large section on the role of parents and the responsibility that parents have in the education of their child. And then, of course, there is the school. Now, in the Act, it will show us that students learn and parents encourage that learning, which means that parents do have a responsibility in encouraging their kids to learn. The student is required to achieve, to learn, and to be assessed. And the school is the one that actually does the assessment and evaluation. The school supports and the parents collaborate. And this is something very important that we as parents might not always be aware of, because of where we come from, or because of our lack of knowledge, or perhaps because of fear. We're not sure how far we can get involved in the school life of our children. So the Education Act tells us very clearly that the parents are part of their child's education. They're considered partners in education, which means that the school, and myself as a principal is speaking, the school, teachers, everybody in the school views parents as partners in education. We want parents to speak to us. We want parents to come to school and say hello. We want the parents to connect with their teachers on a regular basis so they can ensure their child is being successful at school and also at home. Right? We want parents to use their agency, their voice. Parents are not always aware of how much power they actually have. If you want to be involved in fundraising something for the school, you can get involved. If you want to set up for example, in my school we have an affinity group, not for Muslim kids, but for Muslim parents. We have an affinity group for black parents, and at my school we have a number of black Muslim parents attending that group. So you have the right as a parent to go to your school principal and say, I would like to have an affinity group for Muslim parents. You have a large number of Muslim kids who go into your school. We want to be involved in the lives of our kids at school. And through that affinity group, you can give counsel to the principal about maybe bringing a guest speaker, bringing in some sort of professional development about anti-Islamophobia for the staff at the school. You can make these suggestions. You can actually work with the principal to make this a reality. You can join the school council. The school council actually has a budget for exactly these items. And as part of the school council, the principal is accountable. People are not aware of how accountable the principal is to parents. But the school council actually has a full document, policy document from the Ontario government. And if the principal even refuses to follow the advice of the school council, he has to provide in writing reasons why not. So parents have a very powerful voice in the education of their children, and we need to be aware of it and to make that part of something that we do. Now, what are we doing in education? Well, as Muslims, we want to build the iman of our children. We want to build character and academic excellence. Now, we see that in the Education Act, the focus is on academic excellence. But nowhere in the Education Act does it tell teachers or principals or guidance counselors, librarians to teach kids how to pray, or to have taqwa of Allah, or to give zakah, or even to be nice to your fellow human being. It does not exist in the Education Act. It does not exist in any curricular document that we follow in education, which means that all comes from home. And sending our kids to a private school or private Islamic school will not be sufficient. Even instead of a private Islamic school, parents have a role to play. Because if the child prays in school but does not pray at home, there's a problem. If the child is learning to fast in Ramadan at school but no one at home is fasting, there's a problem. If at school they're learning to watch your language, we're Muslim, etc., but they go home to a house where they're swearing in bad language or disrespectful language, then there's a problem. So it's regardless, when kids go to school, parents have a very important role to play. We do not just drop off our kids at the front door and say, okay, make my kid perfect for me, please. Last year in September, a parent came to me. The child was in trouble on the second day of school. She says, if you can make my child perfect, I will bow down and kiss your feet. And I said, no, that's your responsibility, right? It's not for the education system to make the kids great. That is the part of home. That's where parents have to play a very large role in the lives of their kids. Why is character so important for us as Muslims? There's a hadith which is authentic in the collection of Musnad Ahmad, where the Prophet ﷺ summarized his entire risala, his entire messengership, his entire prophethood in one sentence. Does anybody know what he said? He said, I came for no other reason than to do what? To perfect character. To perfect character. So the education system in Ontario does not teach character. We try to here and there. We try to through our clubs. We have these, in Peel we have these 6 characteristics we try to inculcate in our language and how we approach the classroom. But that is from home. And this is the most important part of educating our kids that we as parents must begin to realize. Why? Because the apple does not fall far from the tree. So if I, as a parent, am just focusing on the academics of my kids, then my kid might end up being a doctor, but they'll be the most filthy, disrespectful, disloyal, arrogant airhead of a doctor who will not be respected anywhere in society. And I'm sure you have met these types of doctors, because I know I have, right? Same thing in any profession. If we want our children to be successful, then everything we just said just a few moments ago focused on character. Focus on character, which means at home, we have to make that the priority. We have to listen to the language that's spoken in the home, the tone that is spoken in the home. We must treat each other with respect, and we must treat each other through the lens of love. How many kids come to school and don't feel that sense of love? Too many. And because they have that loss of love or that loss of respect in the home, so many kids grow up not knowing who they are. Which is why often in our circles, and you'll see lectures and workshops about where are my children going? The lost children of Islam, right? The youth identity. What's happened to the Muslim youth these days? And we often wonder what is happening to the Muslim youth these days. Some of us might not be aware, but the vast majority, different studies have shown this, mainly, never in Canada, but all the studies in the US have shown that approximately 75% of teenagers leave the masjid, and only 30% return after university is finished. So our community, although it's big, is shrinking in the masajid because we don't have the allegiance to our deen, the foundation that was mentioned a moment ago, but also we don't have that sense of love and respect in our homes that ground us in that deen and in that identity of being Muslim. So character really matters. Here's a comment explaining to why character matters. Would you rather your child be Dim or Dash? Dim has his mom berate his professor about his grade, whereas Dash goes to the professor and talks about why did I not do as well as I wanted to? How can I improve? Dash. Right. Who would you rather your child park like, right? Because at the masjid sometimes, right, we see a lot of people park like Dim. So if I, as a parent, driving with my big fancy car, park like Dim, what am I teaching my child? To park the same way? To be the same person? How not to park properly. Thank you. That's how it goes. Not parking properly, not praying properly, not making wudu properly, not treating their spouses properly, not treating their siblings properly. It has an impact. Dim eats the last turkey drumstick, and Dash asks if someone would like it before finishing off the plate. Who would we rather have as our kids? Dim never has enough money. He's always leeching off of his friends. And Dash, having a heart of sadaqah, picks up the tab from time to time. Not always. We have to be reasonable. Okay. Dim never shovels a sidewalk, whereas Dash is out there helping the neighbor. And we know what our deen says about neighbors. To the point of they would inherit from us. Neighbors have a very important part in our deen. So I'm sharing these comics with us for us to, this is an illustration for us to understand the importance of character and the importance that character can make in the lives of our kids. So, this is the model of education. And once again, that cornerstone that parents have, parent as first educator, is so important. And this is the message I'm hoping that everybody takes away today, is that as parents, we have a huge amount of responsibility to ensure our kids are successful. And again, I want to reiterate, when I asked everybody here about what is success, no one talked about career, no one talked about academics. Everyone here shared elements of and qualities of character. So it's something we already know, and remind myself first that this is where we have to focus our energy on with our children at home. Okay. As we come down to the last half of today's topic, I'd like to just talk a little bit more about, as we work with our kids at home, there have to be some strategies to help them with academics. So I'm sharing some tidbits of information with us to help our children be successful at school as well. But the strategies I'm going to share are also based around developing good character, right? A strong character. So when we talk about character and parents as first educator teaching the character, these are some strategies that use character to develop good study habits and to help our kids be successful in school. So the first is something called crazy work ethic. We have this in our deen, right? Where do we all want to end up as Muslims? I'm asking, where do we want to go? MashaAllah. I'm so happy the children are here because I don't know how I'm the parents here, man. MashaAllah. We want to get to Jannah. We want to get to heaven, right? But can we just get there? How do we get to heaven? What do we have to do?
We have to be good and kind and pray your salah.
MashaAllah. What else do we have to do?
Do not hit others and respect them.
MashaAllah. This is amazing. And part of getting there, as they're mentioning, this requires work ethic. We have to pray. We have to actually pray 5 times a day. We have to have that work ethic to get up at Salat al-Fajr. We have to make sure we don't go to sleep before praying Salat al-Isha. Right? So we have to have work ethic. Sadaqah, zakah, being kind to others. All of this characteristics that these 2 wonderful children, mashallah, shared, has to do with how we think and how we follow. So who is this? Anybody know? This is close. This is Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was, arguably one of the best basketball players. He retired and then passed away shortly after that. But does anybody know how he became so famous and so good at his game? I'm sorry? Mama mentality, okay.
He prayed his salah and Allah gave him help.
Maybe. I'll tell you how else he did it. This is Michael Jordan. If you watch on YouTube, you will find that Kobe Bryant's every single move, offense and defense, every dunk, every jump shot, every fadeaway, every block, is mimicked 100% after Michael Jordan. And that was his role model growing up. And at what age did Kobe Bryant get selected for the NBA? Age 19, right out of high school. Never even went to college. But that was crazy work ethic. He memorized and mimicked every single move Michael Jordan made. And that's like memorizing the Quran, like following our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How did he pray? How did he make wudu? How was he to his family? Right? How was he as a leader? How was he as a military leader? How was he as a teacher? Following our Nabi, right? Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. What does that mean? Just believing he's the messenger? No. Following him. Because he obviously had crazy work ethic. How else could he be remembered so amazing today? How else could he have been a prophet of Allah? Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had that crazy work ethic. And so by following his example, inshallah, we will attain the Jannah that we want. So it takes character. There's only two names in boxing that people always remember. This is one of them. Mike Tyson. Who was his role model? It's the other name. Right. And so you'll find, how did Mike Tyson box? Almost exactly the same as Muhammad Ali. And here's something for us to note. Who was his first opponent? Who he beat? Anybody know? Yep. Well, you wouldn't know. I won't expect you to know. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to remember his name myself. I think it's Leonard Spinks was his name. But he was the one that beat Muhammad Ali the last fight. So Mike Tyson's first fight was against him, and Muhammad Ali was actually in the front row. And when it was over, Mike Tyson came to Muhammad Ali and said, "That's my gift to you." Right? So that is how close. Forget about the arrogance for a second. He's still successful. This is Elon Musk, for those who are not aware, right? He is still successful. He still has crazy work ethic. He's used his money to make a difference in this world, just like we would use our zakah, our sadaqah, but more importantly, our time, right? We can use our time to make a difference in the lives of our kids. So coming home and giving our kids our ear, giving our kids the time that we have to spend with them, to help them with their homework, to play games with them, to watch TV with them, to whatever we want to do with them, but to sacrifice our time through sadaqah. Just like people like him can use their wealth to do fancy technology things, we can use our wealth. And our wealth, our biggest asset, is time as parents. If you type in YouTube Will Smith and work ethic, you'll see a 10-minute video on what he defines as crazy work ethic. He doesn't just talk about his craft as an actor. He talks about what? His family, right? Because who in his family is also an actor? His son. His son is also a Hollywood actor, right? And I just put him up because it's kind of funny, right? Because he's been around for a very, very long time, and he still brings in millions of dollars, despite his interesting his faith practices. He still has demonstrated crazy work ethic. The reason I'm pointing this out is because this could be you. As parents, we have experience, as I mentioned at the beginning. We have lived a whole life that we can share, and also all these things we have learned that we can share with our children. We can be the ones that show our children what does work ethic look like. If we take time to spend with our kids and share with them our story, how did we become successful? What have we done in our lives, and how did we get there? You know, I often share with my own children the story of my father. My father came here from Pakistan many years ago, in his late teens, early 20s, and he had a specialist in HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. The first job, he could hardly speak any English, but when he got the first job, they said, you can clean this up, we'll hire you for 2 weeks. 20 years later, he leaves the company as the second in charge of the company, as vice president of the company. How'd that happen? Crazy work ethic. And I have these business cards of my father through all the various promotions he received over those 20 years. That's my father's legacy he left me. Whatever you do in life, do it with ihsan, do it with excellence. You can be successful, right? So what are the stories that we can share with our own children? How do we attain success? What have we done? It's not always about education. It's about having that crazy work ethic, that character that we have developed that we can then share with our children so they can also find success. Okay. Learning environment. Is this what we expect inside the room of a Muslim to study? No. Very ugly. Like we would not memorize Quran here. Where would we even pray here? So having a learning environment that is like looks something like this is very, very important because it's a good place area for us to focus. And I want to share with you this picture. This is my own house. Right? I'm sharing with you my own house so that you understand that when I'm here sharing this with you, I'm not just talking. I'm sharing with you, this is my own house. That's my cat, Sparkle. She's our homework buddy. My children sit there with me, right? We all sit together in the same room doing this. As they're doing the work, I'm also doing my work. So that I am also demonstrating for them how I work. They see me working, they're inspired to also work. This is how we engage with our kids. And if you look at the screens, where are they facing? If you were to walk by, would you see what's on the screen? You would. So you know if your kid is actually playing video games, watching TV, or actually working, right? Makes a difference. It could be at the kitchen table. If you don't have a room like this, this is our living room. It's no longer a living room. Now it's a study room. But, if you have a smaller place, that we used to be on the kitchen table until the kitchen table became too small, right? But I want to share with you that this is an example of what we can do to help our kids. Good nutrition. I was one time doing a test with a student in special education. The child had done almost 100% for 5 of the 6 parts of the course. And also in the 6th part, didn't do very well. And I realized the child had not eaten. The child ate, came back, and got 100% on the 6th part. Food is so important, and having healthy nutrition is very important. Having snacks, we do give our kids like potato chips and sugar, and I'm not going to say I don't. We do. I do. I have that too myself. Right? Sometimes we have coffee and donuts and things like that, right? But as much as possible, having something healthy in the home, especially when it comes to studying. Have an apple before they study. Have some tea or something that will stimulate the brain in a positive manner so that they have the energy to get through the day. Now, a lot of people wonder about music. Okay, I'm not going to advocate for music because we're inside of a masjid, right? But some people ask, can kids study to music? And parents often say, no way, Jose. The truth is that sometimes for some kids, sound can help them focus. I'm not talking about music, but sound itself can help them get their mind clear and actually focused. And again, when I work with kids in special education, it actually helps them a lot. But this is an app called Coffeetivity. And you can find several apps like this. There's these tunes on YouTube as well now. You can play them for an hour or 5 hours straight. Coffeetivity is a recording of a coffee shop that loops every 7 minutes. So what happens is that after you listen to about 2 loops, your mind has completely, it becomes white noise, and your mind can actually focus on whatever they're studying. So sometimes that white noise makes a difference to some kids, not all kids. So if you're having this conversation at home, that might be something you look into. And again, on YouTube, there are several white noise kind of 5-hour loops you can listen to. And then sometimes they can be stimulating. Okay. Being prepared for school. Having the proper utensils. Just like when we sit down to have dinner, we have the proper utensils. We have a fork, knife, and spoon. We have a plate or a bowl or whatever it might be. Going to school is no different. We must have the proper working pens and pencils and notebooks, binders, glue sticks, highlighters, whatever our children need. Oftentimes you can ask your teacher, especially in elementary, for a list of what they might need. But if you go to Staples, Staples has a pre-made list of what you need at grade 9, grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, which kind of calculator you need for grade 11 and grade 12, because you have to have a calculator with trig functions on it as well. So being prepared for school with physical elements as well. And then managing time. This is one of the areas that we have a hard time. In our deen, we manage our time around 5 daily salahs every single day. Helps us have a structure to our day. Well, when kids go to school, they have to be able to write down what to do every day. So we don't just sit there on Sunday night and go crazy because we have a test the next day or we have a presentation to do the next day. We have to be able to plan things out. In our own homes, if we don't use an agenda, at the very least, please consider having a family calendar. We can write down what's happening every weekend, where we are going, what event we're attending, which family we're visiting, so on and so forth. For those who just come in, we're just delaying Salah to 8:15, inshallah. I have 3 minutes, okay. 3 minutes, okay. All right. So I'll just quickly get through the last couple of slides then. So part of that is structuring the month, structuring the week, but also structuring our days. When kids are in high school, at 8:30 or so, they have period 1, and then a bell goes off. Period 2, a bell goes off, lunch. A bell goes off, period 3. A bell, period 4, another bell, go home. When they go home, are there any bells? So how do they know when to do their homework? So structured time looks like this. You have a calendar and you work this with your children. At 3 o'clock, you come home. From 3 to 4, you have a snack, you relax, take it easy, get changed, whatever you might need to do. 4 o'clock, period 1 homework. 5 o'clock, period 2 homework. 6 o'clock, dinner. 7 o'clock, period 3 homework. 8 o'clock, period 4 homework. 9 o'clock, review your notes. 10 o'clock, get ready to go to bed. You can put Salah inside there as well. You know, if the kid finishes their work early, they can watch some TV, they can go on their social media. But we have to prioritize time. There are no bells going off in our homes, but if we set up a schedule, inshallah, we can actually help our kids learn the value of time. This is something called the Seinfeld method. Some might know who Seinfeld is. Very famous comedian. He's a multimillionaire. He's very, very wealthy, and mashallah. And so what he developed is something called the Seinfeld method, where every single day he had to come up with a new joke. This was the key to his success. He called it the Seinfeld method. He checked everything off every day on the calendar. So what I would encourage us all to do is help our kids have a calendar, a Seinfeld calendar, where every day they clicked off that they did their homework or they at least reviewed their notes every single day. And the key to it is don't break the chain. Every single day, either a check mark or a cross on it so that they know that they have done the work they're supposed to do that day. And I'm getting towards the end over here. I only have a minute left. Just give me a couple more minutes, please. This is the how do we actually take notes? A lot of kids don't know how to take notes in class. So this is one method called the Cornell method. Cornell is a university. It's an Ivy League university in the US, and this is something they teach all of their first-year students. It's something that as a teacher, I would share my students from grade 9 and onwards. How do you actually make notes? So step 1, you write down all your raw notes. Step 2, you decide what the main questions or ideas are. But the most important part is 3, where you summarize the notes in your own words. Why your own words? Because when it comes to a test, can you remember the textbook? Not likely. But would you remember your own words? Absolutely. One of the miracles of the Quran is that Allah SWT made it easier for us to remember that, but not our chemistry textbook, right? Okay, we can memorize the Quran, but it's hard to memorize a chemistry textbook. My last point is self-advocacy. We have to teach our kids to ask for help when they need it, right? Don't wait till the test or the night before the test or the morning of the test to ask for help. We have to teach our kids to ask for help immediately. Now, if we're sitting with our kids while they're doing their homework, we will be able to see when they need help. We can help them craft an email to the teacher to make sure they get the help they need the following day. Sitting with our kids when they do their homework makes it easy for us. Remember, parent asks first, educator, to be that first stage of self-advocacy for our children. Children know how to ask to go to the washroom. They need to know to ask when they need help with something. How to see the teacher at lunchtime or before school or after school. And last couple of things I want to mention, the last slide here, is what we can do as parents. And I mentioned a few of these already, but the first is to not do the homework for our children. Funniest thing happened to me one time. A parent came to see me because their child failed an essay. And the parent was quite upset. And the parent said to me, "Do you know how long I worked on that essay?" All right, true story, it happened. I was Bramley Secondary School, and I had the parent think about what they had just told me. Don't do the homework for them. Remember those previous slides? We want to be proactive, not reactive, and not overreactive, right? We don't want to do things for our children. We don't want to create that sense of self-entitlement for them. We want them to do things on their own, but we're there to support with them. As I mentioned earlier, we should always be in contact with our teachers, right? Your child has 4 teachers every semester. If you're not in contact with them, there's a problem. They should at least know who you are. And you should be able to email them at the beginning of the semester. Even if your kids don't like it, email them saying, "I'm so-and-so, the father or mother of so-and-so. I'm here to help. Let me know if my child falls behind, or is talking too much in class, or skipping class, or doing well in class, being helpful in class. Tell me how my child is doing in your room." If something is good working at your home environment, let the teacher know. "My child works well when this happens. Can you please do that in class?" Or, "My child's doing really well in your math class. What are you doing? Because it's not happening in science." And replicate the environment. If you don't know what your child is learning in school, please read the curriculum documents. They're all available online. And if you would like, take the textbook and read the topics that are there. Check in with your child every single day, as we've mentioned. Be available for support. And as I mentioned earlier, join the school council and join the parent affinity groups. Jazakallah khairan. I've gone over time. I apologize. Okay, thank you. I hope, inshallah, this was beneficial for you. Once again, my email address is there. If you wanted to take it again, oops, I've gone too far, but omar.zia@plsb.com. So you're more than welcome to email me anytime that you wish. For if you want to copy this, I can send you the PDF as well. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah, Jazakumullah khairan. Sorry, Brother Omar, we rushed you. I hope, unfortunately, sometimes time is not on our side. But alhamdulillah, we learned a lot today. I learned a lot today. I'm sure all of us learned a lot. I had the privilege of being born and raised in Canada, so I went to school here, and now my children go to school here. So I definitely resonate with those wonderful examples. Alhamdulillah, I said this is a parenting workshop. So we're going to have Brother Omar Zia come back again, and we'll have a panelist discussion with all the speakers so that we can have a proper Q&A. I know a lot of you guys are asking about the material, so please email us at info@skcenter.com. Info or office@skcenter.com, and say I would like a copy of the presentation, which I'll get from Brother Zia. And inshallah, next week we'll continue on with the parenting series. And inshallah, like I said, at the end of this, we're having a panel discussion, which will just be Q&A. So prepare all your questions, inshallah. Again, Jazakumullah khairan, Brother Omar. Thank you for taking time to come out. And inshallah, you're going to hear the call to adhan, and then we'll wrap up the program. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا